The president is pardoning thousands of people convicted for use and simple possession of marijuana. This action is affecting only those convicted on federal lands and in Washington, D.C., the areas in which the president has the authority to act. It is the latest round of executive clemencies by the president meant to rectify racial disparities in the justice system. Biden is also granting clemency to 11 people serving what the White House calls, quote, disproportionately long sentences for nonviolent drug offenses. Meanwhile, we're looking at recent polling suggesting the Israel-Hamas war could be hurting the president in a big way with a key voting bloc. The latest NBC News polling showing that among voters aged 18 to 34, a whopping 70% said they disapprove of Biden's handling of the conflict, while his overall approval rating with young voters has plummeted to just 31%. Biden also may be losing ground with black voters, as that same NBC News poll has him beating Trump 69 to 22%, with African-American voters a sharp decline from his 2020 numbers. I want to bring in Dinora Getachew, the CEO of DoSomething.org, and Adrian Shropshire, the executive director of Black PAC, to talk more about all of this. Dinora, I want to start with you on this one and just talk about the overall concern the president and his team should be having right now when it comes to young voters and the plummet that we're really seeing in these percentage points of support.
So great to be here with you on this lovely Saturday before the holiday season. So thanks for having me to talk about such an important issue. Of course, this is an issue of concern for young people, especially Gen Z. Let's be honest, that this is the first time this young generation is watching multiple wars overseas, the extent of a global pandemic, economic uncertainty really taking a toll on them. And it's all happening at once, and it's all happening live, right? Young people in the palm of their hands have access to this information at scale. And what I would say is it's probably too soon to know how it's really going to impact the 2024 election cycle. What we know to be true at Do Something, the home for young people of civic activism, is that 18 to 24-year-olds are really concerned. They're concerned about the economic uncertainty that we're facing and whether our elected officials are hearing their voices. They're concerned about mental health and the climate crisis. They are also concerned about what's happening abroad and how that's going to shape their lives and the democracy and society that they're going to inherit. What we need to know, and what our elected officials, the Biden administration, and those running for office really need to hold on to, is that young people are watching, right? We're going to see the most diverse electorate that we've seen in decades. 7 million new voters are going to come of age to vote between now and the 2024 election cycle. They want to make sure their voices are heard, and they want to make sure that their elected officials actually are creating economic conditions for them to be successful. Otherwise, they're going to continue to be cynical.
You're seeing, though, a real correlation, Dinora, between this drop in support from young voters and the Israel-Hamas war. I mean, just in the last couple of months, if we look at the polling, right, in September, the president's approval rating, I should say, President Biden's approval rating was at 46%. It has dropped now to 31%, with 70%, as I mentioned earlier, disapproving of the president's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. I'm wondering if you feel as if the administration, Biden's team, they underestimated how this would affect his reelection bid.
Yeah, I honestly think it's too soon to tell, right? The polls are going to continue to evolve, even as what unfolds in the Middle East continues to evolve in the next 8 months before the election. What we know and what we hear from young people that Do Something is that they don't actually believe their elected officials are taking their voices into consideration when they're enacting policy. So this does comport with that, right? 83% of young people from a recent Snap poll said they don't actually believe their elected officials are listening. And so this does fall in line with that, but there's still time for the Biden administration and all elected officials, for that matter, to really make sure that they're tuning in to Gen Z and millennial voters and making sure that they're responding to their policy priorities and concerns.
Adrian, then there's the concern over the Black American vote, right? It was the Black American vote. It was Black women that helped win the president his office, his seat back in 2020. He has lost almost 20 points amongst Black voters just in the last year. How concerned should they be? And what do they need to do if they could turn it around?
Yeah, I think that, as we just heard, there's a full, set of issue lengths that voters are experiencing right now. Voters are very pessimistic. And I think that's kind of across the board. I think Black voters are obviously included in that. I do think, though, that it's important to note a couple of things. So first of all, Black voters remain the strongest supporters of Democrats, and that's Black men and Black women. Two, I think that it is important to remember kind of where Black voters fall in their voting behavior on Election Day. I think we should all take these polls with a little bit of caution, and not just look at where we're seeing in these polls Black voters are standing in this moment, but we really need to look at what happens on Election Day with voters, and particularly when I think about the numbers and we see them in the shot that you just put up, this sense that there's going to be some overwhelming shift of Black voters in terms of their support for Donald Trump. And it's just hard to imagine that those numbers are anywhere close to being real. And partly because we know that in 2020, according to Pew, only 8% of Black voters supported Trump. In 2022, only 5% of Black voters supported Republican candidates. In 2016, right, we only had 6% of Black voters supporting Donald Trump. So I think that the polls are a little bit skewed. It's too far out to actually know what's going to happen on Election Day.
Let me ask you, Adrienne, if I can quickly, about the president's most recent actions. He announced the pardoning of thousands of people convicted on federal marijuana charges. The majority of people arrested on these types of charges have been disproportionately Black Americans. You had this recent polling from Gallup showing that 72% of people of color and 79% of people aged 18 to 34, they support the legalization of marijuana. Are the pardons in a way meant to play to both minority, you think, and young voters to try and bring those numbers up?
I mean, I think the administration has done a lot over the term so far to address issues that are concerning to Black voters. Criminal justice reform obviously is one of those issues. Sentencing reform is obviously a part of that. And so I don't think that this is just things that they're doing in sort of this period of time of the election. I think that these are issues that they're committed to. We also saw motion this week on police accountability, where the administration launched a new database to track police misconduct. That's really important. And that adds on to what they've done in terms of police reform, again, over the course of the term, banning chokeholds, banning no-knock warrants among federal law enforcement. I think that the administration and the campaign has a challenge in getting the information about what they've done to the voters who are going to be the most difficult to turn out in an election. And that obviously includes young people.
That's exactly what I was going to ask, is if they're communicating some of the changes and the efforts they've made effectively. But you answered that question without me asking it. Adrienne Shropshire, thank you. Dinara Getachew, thank you as well. Happy holidays to you both.
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
Sir, come on, when is it not, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah. I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I was so dang weird going on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
This
was just a diversion. Security, make room up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Evac.
She's right in front.
We're facing a heavy sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General! General! We need to immediately evacuate everything. Hold on. National security advisory. Stay down. Check it out. The mission celebration. The amateurs for suicide mission.